So, hello and welcome to Sliding Doors Podcast, episode 3. Thank you for all the love so far. We are available on all your good Google, all your good podcast streams and stuff. So get on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts. Just search for Sliding Doors and obviously give us a 5-star rating if you're feeling generous. And obviously we're also available on YouTube. If you could subscribe, that would be great. And we're, like I say, we're into episode 3 already. So we're joined today by Freddie. Freddie's going to introduce himself shortly. And yeah, over to you, Freddie.
Great. Thank you so much, Rob. Hi, I'm Freddie Williams. I'm a talent acquisition specialist, and I'm really looking forward to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting me, Rob. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. It's good to have you. So we'll get straight into it.
Sure.
Obviously, as is kind of tradition now, topic 1 is all around kind of love and relationships. So if you want to just kick us off with your sliding door moment around that.
Sure. So yeah, crikey, sliding door moment for relationships. I mean, I've had a few. So it is difficult to pick, but you know, I'm gay. I'm very open about who I am. I'm very kind of confident within my sexuality. So, you know, I think for me, you know, I've kind of always struggled with the relationships when it comes to being gay, because, you know, there's a lot of selectiveness, there's a lot of like judgment, there's a lot of different things that kind of goes on within the community walls, I guess. And you know, so I've always struggled to find people who really kind of are a bit like me, you know, not really followers of the crowd as such. But I guess my sliding door moment for me in terms of relationships would be my first partner who I met at LGBT youth group in Bristol called Freedom Youth. Fantastic group. It's still going now, actually. Set up in Old Market. But you know, the whole purpose of the group really was there to support the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, obviously, when I went, and I was 13 at the time, not 13, I was about, well, I was going from about the age of 15, but you know, I probably, when I met my first partner, I was about 18. And the fantastic group and what they do, you know, so there was a real diverse age range, because it was like 13 to like 20, you know, so there were lots of different people there. And I think that when I first met I guess my sliding door moment really is, you know, I was, I wish now kind of maybe that I'd carried on with that relationship a little bit. You know, what if I'd continued that? You know, when I met Tom, we were very different people.
Yeah,
very different people. You know, I was 18, I was just coming into my own in terms of my sexuality, you know, because I would hit the clubs every weekend. I don't know if you remember Flamingo's nightclub.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. So that was like drink the Vajai, £20. I used to hit that up every weekend. So, you know, it was really it was kind of my coming of age almost, that I suppose I didn't necessarily have when I was a bit younger. So, you know, when I was with Tom, I think that I was quite ahead of the relationships in terms of feeling confident with who I was, but he wasn't, you know, because he was from Western, he was from, you know, quite a tight-knit family who aren't homophobic, and they loved him very much, but I think he just wasn't entirely comfortable with you know, with, I guess,
with slightly ahead in terms of, you know, where you were on your journeys.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, it's really funny because I had to grow up with a lot of resilience. I grew up in St. Paul's, you know, central Bristol, and it is a predominantly Black area. So there were a lot of Black kids, Black families, and, you know, coming from a dual heritage family myself, and growing up within Jamaican culture, Caribbean culture, you know, it was very difficult because I was homophobically abused from, you know, from the age of like probably 5 up to about 15. So I had to have a thick skin. And then in year 10, you know, I came out at school. My English teacher pretty much forced me out of the closet into the class in front of loads of homophobic students, which is great. But at that point, I think that I had just kind of made a realization that this is who I am. I accept that about myself. And it's a shame that, you know, kind of looking back on it now, I could have been a lot more empathetic, I think, in my relationship with Tom. So that would definitely be it for me.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely, like you say, that comes with age, doesn't it? In terms of, you know, being aware of that. You certainly wouldn't have been aware of that at the time. And I think that, you know, just to kind of, and if you're happy to share, but I think that was really interesting what you said then around your English teacher kind of forced you out. So that for me sounds really interesting. If you're comfortable to kind of expand on that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's probably my favorite story to tell, which is really odd. But I always wanted a bit of a dramatic coming out. But I'm very fortunate to be able to do that and be loved at the same time, and have the support and kindness, which, you know, not a lot of people have extended to them, which is a complete shame. But yeah, it was really strange. I remember the days of MSN Messenger. And I had told a girl from school that I was gay. I'd broken up with my girlfriend who I was seeing, and I told this girl that I was gay, that I liked men, and then it just spread like wildfire. It just was like it. Yeah, and no one was surprised. I mean, no one was like, "Oh, Freddie's gay." Surprise, surprise. You know, it was kind of a bit of like a bit of an anticlimax, really. But I remember it was a hot topic in school. You know, they were having debates about whether or not I actually was gay, because I'd just been told that for all of my life. Whether or not, you know, I'm faking it, or, you know, how am I going to survive in the school environment now that I'm, you know, an out and proud homosexual. And then I remember being sat in English, and one of the students, I think I just always kind of made like, we all made snide remarks to each other, because we didn't really all like each other anyway. And I said something to some person, and they went, "Oh, at least I'm not gay." And the entire class fell silent. Like, you'd hear a pin drop. And my teacher was like, "Well, if Freddie's gay, that's okay. Like, it's fine. Freddie, are you gay? You can stand up and tell us. Stand up and tell us if you're gay, Freddie." So I was a bit like, well, now I feel like I have to say something. Then when you're 15, you know, there's a little pressure.
Yeah, that's a big moment.
Yeah, to put on someone that young, you know, to be like, "Oh, you can tell the class." And I was like, but that's not your job. That's my job, because it's my news, it's my, you know, it's part of who I am. And I remember standing up and being like, "Yeah, I'm gay." And it was almost kind of like it was really weird. I did feel very kind of, it was almost like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, you know, because I'd held it back for so long. Because I always knew, I think I knew from the day that I was born that I liked men, you know. And don't get me wrong, I think women are stunning, and I dated women, you know, but there was always something about men that was different for me, you know. And from a young age, I can remember that being a thing for me.
And
so
how did it go in terms of, and again, you don't have to share if you don't want to. Obviously, you kind of mentioned that it became more of a expectation that you were going to announce. How was that with kind of your family in terms of that? Because again, you kind of hear stories about that not going so well. I think our generation, it probably is more accepted. Obviously, previous generations probably not as much so.
No.
So yeah, just if you want to expand on that, then
yeah, no, of course. Like I said, you know, I'm very fortunate. I am very loved. I'm very liked. You know, I've always had the support of all of my family. My mom especially, you know, I think she always knew. I think I popped out doing jazz hands. You know, so I think she always kind of knew that one day that would be a reality for me. And I was very fortunate. I grew up with lesbian aunties and cousins as well, so, and gay men, a lot of gay men, especially with my auntie, because she was very into, she was very into the scene. And she had some great gay friends. And I remember having that being part of my narrative, and not being afraid of that either. And not being afraid, I remember doing like theatre in school and drama, and the teachers were always fairly camp and people have always called me camp. So I've never held back. And I think that, my family have just always accepted that about me, and I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate that has been something for me. And, it's really funny. I do talk to mum, and a bit of a sliding door moment, actually. And I said, if I was gay in another time period, the 80s or the 90s, would you be worried for me? And she said, yeah, I would, because it was so different.
Yeah.
So different. And I do wonder sometimes. I wonder what my life would be if I didn't like men, if I wasn't attracted to men who, I can't. It's funny that I sit down sometimes and I think, if I was to marry a woman, who would I marry? What would my life look like?
Yeah.
So but I guess that now, kind of all of that reflection, I know Daisy, my housemate, we've been friends for quite a long time now, and like she said in her podcast, I think we're very fortunate that we have each other, that we're like each other's platonic soulmates, that she's really my twin that just magically appeared. And I think you don't always need that, I guess, all of that kind of normal relationship stuff. It's sometimes, you can have a good relationship with someone and it doesn't have to be sexual. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It can just be a good, solid friendship. And that's healthy.
I think that's been really interesting from my point of view, in terms of kind of, like say, it's interesting to think about, like you mentioned Tom, and you kind of being at different stages, and then that kind of ripple effect of, wondering whether you ever would have got to the same stage, I guess is the moment, isn't it? It's kind of thinking, would we have ever aligned up in terms of your journeys? That is the what if, isn't it? It's that's been really interesting. Thank you. So moving kind of swiftly on to topic 2. So topic 2 obviously is around kind of career, kind of work based. So have you got kind of an example for us there around the sliding door moment?
Yeah, 100%. So I originally trained as an actor, professional singer.
Wow, okay.
I think kind of stemming back to my childhood, that was always my dream, was to be on the stage. I don't think I could have thought of anything else. And now, I'm a talent acquisition specialist for a company in Manchester called CTI Digital. And we provide things like, websites, and we do digital transformation for companies all over the UK. And I think back on that, I look at where I am now and I go, wow, that wasn't what you wanted, not that long ago, like 5, maybe 6, 7 years ago. That's not what you wanted. You wanted to be on the stage. So how did I get here? And I think that I don't think anyone really ever falls into recruitment. No, I don't think anyone ever picks to go into recruitment, but you fall, and it just happens. I was I just come back from London, so I'd done my university degree. I'd finished off, because I took a bit of a break, and I went to London. I was in a production of The Jungle Book on the road.
What part did you play?
I played Blue, the bear.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and it was great. And it was like an educational piece for children. And it was so much fun. And I really wanted to continue that. And I stayed in London for a little while longer, and I did, audition for things like Dreamgirls, television, all of that stuff. And getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to get the coach down to London to go to Pineapple Dance Studios and queue for hours on end to just get told no, it's really soul damaging. And I think that when I came back to Bristol, I didn't have any work dried up. I wasn't getting any acting work, so I then went to care work. And I love care work. You know, I'm a very caring person in my nature. And then from there started doing the admin, that led to recruitment, and then I guess really kind of tumbled in from there, you know, tumbled in, and I'm kind of sat where I am now, you know, as a talent acquisition specialist, kind of almost 5 years on. It's so crazy to think that, you know, I wouldn't have ever thought of this life for myself ever.
Do you think there was ever, do you think there's kind of, and I absolutely relate to that bit around, you know, the big journey into London, doing the interview, thinking that, you know, what is the point ultimately, isn't it? After you, when you get that no, is there one that kind of sticks out in your mind? Was that, what was that kind of turning point of, this is not going to be the route, like I need to find something else? You know, was there one that kind of sticks out to you that was a particular experience?
Probably Dreamgirls was my last proper audition, and it was an open audition, so I went to London really early. I'd stayed the night, actually no, I stayed the night before because I was seeing my friend, so I stayed the night before, and I traveled halfway across London to the Royal Shakespeare Company to do this audition. And you know, they asked for you know, people of color and people who are mixed race as well, dual heritage. So I was like, that's fine, I'm dual heritage, you know, I'm a bit lighter, but you know, like my mum and my sister, something I'm very proud of is my heritage. And I went to this audition and they just looked at me and they were like, oh, okay. So I sang, and I remember the guys started playing, and auditions are always kind of my downfall, really. I never do well in auditions for some reason. I choke and I'm like, oh, too many people. Oh, no. So I remember I was singing this song. I can't remember what it was now. I think it's Catch Me If You Can, the musical. And I got to the high note and I just fell. I don't know what happened. And they just smiled and they were like, okay, well, thank you for coming in. We'll call you if we need you. Yeah. So that was that. I was shipped off, you know, I was like, well, I definitely don't have that. And I think that was my turning point. That was my like, okay, actually, you know, can you keep doing this? Is this something, you know, you want to keep doing? And I did a few more after that as well. And that was just cruise ship auditions, but they just get so competitive. And you could walk in it. The lovely thing with theatre is everyone's so friendly. So no one ever, you know, especially in an audition situation. So, you know, you walk into a dance studio and the dance studio is huge. So there's usually about maybe like 70, 80 people, 100 sometimes, depending on the show. And you walk into a dance studio and all these eyes are just like fixated on you. And you're just like, okay, well, yeah, thank you so much. And you're scared. It's terrifying, you know, and also being slightly bigger as well. You know, I, you know, and that's something I'm okay with, but in musical theatre land, being big or being fat is just viewed as, no, it's not a thing, you know, everyone's stick thin, you know. So yeah, so I think though that Dreamgirls audition was definitely my capitalist. It was my, like, I was like, okay, this is, I've got to finish now because I don't think I can continue to do this. And I was also vastly running out of money at that point, so I was like, I can't rely on mum forever, so I do have to actually get a job.
Yeah, because I had obviously not in kind of wanting to be on stage or anything like that, but I had always had this idea of, you know, everyone talks about traveling when they're early, you know, early, or certainly late teens, early 20s, and I always had this kind of ambition, I guess, to kind of do that and work, so kind of do that, and for some whatever reason I always wanted to do a ski season, and it always sticks in my head as that, again, a bit of a crossroad moment of, I kind of went to an interview in London for a kind of ski season. Everyone's like, oh, they always want people. It'll be really easy. It's fine. It's just an interview. You'll nail it. And I remember like traveling, like you say, silly o'clock in the morning to get to this back ass place in London, to have an interview for like a bar supervisor or whatever. I was doing bar work at the time. I thought, I've got this. And, I can do an interview. I'll be fine. And then just went to pieces in the interview. Couldn't think about any of the examples they wanted to hear. Literally was all done by 11 a.m. and I was like, and it had started at 10. They were like, literally, I was cut at the first round, and I thought, like, I just can't do that anymore. I need to kind of think about getting back into retail, kind of, because I'd started in retail, then I'd gone to kind of hospitality in kind of pursuit of that, and then it, like, again, it was just that no again. And I was like, I need to think about kind of the next interview and getting it, and that was kind of where, when I then had the Primark interview, obviously ultimately met Daisy, and kind of got back into retail that way. But yeah, I can certainly relate in terms of that 5 a.m. start, traveling to London, the weight of expectation on you, isn't it, for that, for what you perceive as something you really want at the time, and then you don't get it, and you're like, right, now I've got to reevaluate. Now I've got to think about a different route, and obviously it's led us to where we are now. I never thought I'd be interviewing people on a podcast. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I think life has so many funny like paths, and you can have all the what ifs, but I'm a huge believer everything happens for a reason. And I do believe that acting is probably the reason why I'm sat here today, and doing what I'm doing and talking to you. But I still make it a part of my everyday life, that I use a lot of my acting as being neurodiverse as well. I'm not neurotypical. I don't think the same way that people think. So, kind of, I use a lot of my acting skills to be able to put on a bit of a front, or kind of make people see things differently, or kind of just, guess putting on a bit of a mask, really. And I used to do a lot of like interview training. I used to do a lot of like pre-job training, kind of a previous role. And I would always be like, imagine you're on the stage, imagine you're just you're a character, because even though you want it to be real and it should be 100% authentic, just having a bit of a kind of, I guess, getting a bit of that bravado, that you get on stage, you're not yourself for 5 minutes, just kind of, having a bit of that mask, I think is always helpful. And that's what I love, and that's what I always try to carry with me, in whatever I do, and I still sing and I still do things. So
I think on that, the biggest one that's kind of stuck in my head around that was always that TED talk about fake it until you make it. That's the one that I kind of went, after that bad interview, I kind of went, okay, I need to look at I need to look at my interview technique. I need to look at what I was doing in terms of prep. And yeah, that one always sticks out to me. That TED, if people haven't seen it, I'd definitely recommend it if you're going for an interview. It is the 5-minute pep talk that you need before you go into any interview. It just basically tells you to kind of, like you say, front it out. You're giving them the version that they want to see ultimately, and then you can go back to being your normal self when you come out of that interview. But obviously, if you want whatever you're interviewing for or auditioning for, obviously in your example, I would absolutely recommend that video. And I'll pop it in the comments on the YouTube video out when we put this up, for people to go and have a look.
100%. And I always think of everything, they talk about acting as a craft, acting as a craft, develop your craft, believe in your craft. And I think that about every job, every aspect of your life is a craft. Working in talent acquisition is a craft. I have to do things, I have to consistently learn and develop. And the same in HR, you have to always be one step ahead. So, kind of doing as much as you can every day to learn and develop is really important. And I think that really helps in the long run, with things like interviews and talking and, even if you don't believe it, someone else will. So.
So yeah, obviously that, moving on to our third and final topic, this is always the scary one for me, because I don't know what you're going to say next.
Okay.
But obviously it's the wild card. So it's over to you, Freddie.
Yeah, so I thought quite hard about my wild card, because I do have a few, I guess, really. But I guess for me, would be drama school.
Mm.
I guess all of my roots go back to theatre. All of my roots, wherever I look at it, from whatever perspective, everything will always head back to the stage.
Mm.
And I just wish that, I auditioned for the drama school, and I got in, and I was so over the moon with myself, because that's hard. That's not easy.
Yeah.
Drama
To be
school
proud, yeah.
is very difficult to get into, and and they were like, it's 10 grand. And I was like, oh, I don't have 10 grand. And I begged my mom. I was like, please, 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 can you just do this loan? It was like a guarantor loan, so if I can't pay it, she has to pay it. And I can understand why she said no, but
yeah, of course.
I wish I'd just done it.
Mm.
I wish I'd just gone for it, because I think my life would be so different now. So different. I would be on the stage now, I think, because you would have the discipline, you have the training, you have the, all the bits. And even though I did, 4 years of musical theatre at college and a 5th year at university, they were all quite Mickey Mouse courses. I wouldn't say they really prepared you for the real world of theatre. So, I know by going to drama school, I would have,
it would have been that next step.
I would have liked to think that I would be on the West End. Yeah.
It would, like you say, it'd been the next step, wouldn't it, in terms of that? So, like you say, you have had some exposure to learning and training, but it's always almost like the icing on top of the cake, isn't it? It's that bit that makes the difference.
100%, yeah. And you get that exposure that you need. This was always the issue, was that, even though I could do acting and singing kind of freelance, and I'd get a lot of interest, like people would come up to me, they'd be, you should be on the X Factor, or you should go for this. And I did it, and I got the t-shirt. It's not the best industry to be in, because everyone's really mean, but well, not everyone. I feel that's quite a generalizing statement. Most people that you come across aren't very nice, and they're very kind of, you need to do this, you need to change this, you need to change that. And I think that by going to drama school, I would have had the exposure that I would have needed to really launch my career. But unfortunately, at the time, I lacked the discipline. I lacked the funds. And it's one of those things that I think is a part of a bigger issue as well. There's lots of talks at the moment about, the types of people that go to drama school, because the middle class families, they can afford to pay the 14, 15 grand a year, or a term even, to go and do that and live in central London, so it's kind of like coming from a working class family who had no, I guess didn't have the opportunity to do things like that. It was really difficult, because I don't think that's necessarily fair. There should be more opportunity, and it's good, it's changing. You can get student loans for drama school now, which is great. And I think that's a really positive turn in terms of accessibility. But and I'm incredibly grateful for the life I had as a kid. I got a lot of things. I was still very privileged. I got to do a lot of different stuff. But that would really be my wild card, would be going to drama school and doing what I love, because I think about it so often. But then I wouldn't trade it for the world now. I still love what I do.
And and forgive my ignorance, is it then something that you could still do now, or is it kind of, is there a cut-off point? Again, you're talking to a complete novice here, so
It's fine.
I apologize.
I mean, like anything in life, you know, you're never too young. I always say to people, you're never too young to get into anything. And people go to university at like 60 and 40, and that's fine. You know, I don't think there's necessarily a cutoff, but I think it's whether or not you have the drive to get up and go and do it, you know? And I think for me, I have thought about going back. A little part of me was like, I could just go and do it again. You know, I could just get up and go and do it again. And I recently had a bit of a breakdown, and I kind of took some time off work, and I really evaluated what it was that I was really looking for. I was like, could I get back into acting now? Is it too much? Am I driven enough still? And I just think that as much as I love the idea, you know, I just don't think it's viable, especially after the pandemic, especially after, you know, and I'm a home comforts person. Yeah, I love my home comforts. I love having money to financially support myself, and I love the home that I live in. I love living with Daisy, you know, so we've got a very comfortable life. And I think if I was to go back to that, I'd have to think about the hardships that come along with that, you know. And when you're 30 or you know, and you're pushing up, you kind of like, I have to take a moment to be like, right, okay, so I either need to do this properly or just no, it's not going to happen. So it is a shame. But if anyone wants to do it, you know, go and do it. I'm not telling you not to follow your dreams, because I think it's fabulous. And I always tell people to go and do what they want, what they're passionate about. I think is so good. But also, you know, have to be a bit realistic about the situation.
I fully agree. So I obviously, like I kind of touched on, I worked in retail for a long time and then transferred kind of over to HR, not late in life. Obviously I'm only 33, so it's not late in life, but I kind of graduated from my HR course when I was 29, having kind of started it kind of 27, 28. And I think, like, again, it was that you have to weigh up, don't you, in terms of kind of where you are at the time, whether you can kind of commit to that. And like you say, it was a big leap of faith. But like you say, you ultimately have to kind of, like, only you can decide that, like, and like you say, it is very much kind of personal experience guide to that. I think you know, did I see myself working in retail forever at that point? Absolutely not. So I was like, I have to do something else. I have to give what I'm passionate about a chance. And you know, it was always the kind of the people side that I was passionate about, so I had to kind of look into that, and that's led me to obviously where I am. But you're absolutely right. It's not for everyone, and I think there's so many factors to consider when you are thinking of it. It's financial, it's way of life, it's all these kind of external factors, and that's not going to be for everyone. I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there in terms of, you know, it will resonate, I think, with a lot of people in that kind of your what if moment there, because it, you know, it certainly resonates with me, and I'm sure it will resonate with a lot of others in terms of kind of, you know, not pursuing something or not being able to because of X, Y, and Z. And I think, you know, that was a really good share there, Freddie.
Thank you. No, I'm really glad. You know, I always try to, I think it's always good to, you know, if you can inspire yourself, you can inspire others, I guess. And I think that's you know, really important.
And I think what was really kind of stood out for me was it is around that drive part, in terms of, you know, maybe when people do get a little bit older, and again, late 20s is not old by any stretch, because I'm only in my 30s. But you kind of, you get to that point, and it is about, can I go again? Can I, you know, do I have that drive to go? You know, I've got to commit to X, Y, and Z. I've got to commit to this amount of time of development, or this amount of time of trying to get that role, and all those, like you say, all those kind of things that link to kind of your drive around that subject. And I think that was the really key bit for me to kind of get across to everyone else, is that, you know, if you are, it takes a certain amount of drive and a certain amount of kind of lining everything, you know, getting your ducks in a row in terms of kind of making sure everything is right at that time. But yeah, drive's a huge part of it, I think.
100%. And it's also about the physical energy and the emotional energy that you're ready to pour into that. You know, you've got to be able to listen to your body and say, okay, actually, am I emotionally invested in this? Because, you know, we can talk about drive, but lots of things come along with the word drive. You know, are we mentally prepared? Are we, you know, emotionally prepared? Are we, you know, all of those things? And I think that if you're not there, then, you know, that's okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, you can take your time, and you can start things later in life. I don't think you're ever too old to start anything. But yeah, I definitely think it is about just making sure that you've got, like you said, you've got all your ducks in a row, and you're you're 100% set on it. But also, you know, I've faced a lot of failure. I've had a lot of failure, and I recognize that. Do you know what I mean? And that's also okay, because, you know, sometimes you are just going to fail, and that's fine. You pick yourself up and you try again. I can say that about the hundreds of auditions that I did, or the hundreds of interviews I did before I started doing recruitment. You know, kind of looking back on it and going, oh, right, okay, actually, you know, I failed so many times, but I got up and I put myself back on track, and I went, I'm not going to let this go. You know, you've got to be a bit of like a dog with a bone situation. So it's all about that emotional and physical energy that you're willing to put into it.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great analogy to finish on there, Freddie, in terms of like a dog with a bone. Love that. So yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
That's the end of the episode, everyone. You know, if you can like, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating would be great. And yeah, we'll see you again next time. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Freddie.
Thanks. Bye.